right, and getting back onto Smart Means Business, this is when we are definitely going to look at some of the stories that are making headlines across the African continent, and as well as what is making headlines in the business world across the entire globe. And with that, we're heading into the SMB across borders to give you the details that you might have missed from different angles and different countries that are neighboring Uganda and those far away from our country. Well, with that, we do start from the East African Community bloc, as Tanzania and the African Development Bank have partnered to fund businesses of vulnerable groups. Tanzania agreed to partner with the African Development Bank to support the economic empowerment programs for women, youth, and small-scale traders, locally known as machingas. This follows a visit by the African Development Bank President Akinwumi Adesina, who was in Tanzania from February the 7th to February the 9th. Dr. Adesina said that the bank and Tanzania talked about how to empower these women through the African Development Bank's Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, that is AFAWA. That is a program that was put in place by the African Development Bank. The program aims to bridge a $42 billion financing gap facing most of the women in the African continent. Dr. Adesina's visit signals strong ongoing support by the Pan-African lender for transformative infrastructure in the country. And during the visit, Adesina and President Samia Suluhu Hassan laid the foundation stone for the 112.3 kilometer Dodoma City Outer Ring Road, co-financed by the African Development Bank. The circular highway forms part of the master plan to transform Dodoma into a thriving, sustainable city for its 2.4 million people when it comes to the population. The new road is envisaged to help market Dodoma as a growing city and tourist destination. So when you look at this, Rita, is that Tanzania making a very huge partnership with the African Development Bank here to see that they're going to support the small-scale traders, or what you could call the SMEs in Tanzania and those in Dodoma.
And I see also they are going to be improving their infrastructure development, targeting about 2.4 million people. That's a good one. I mean, whenever structure or infrastructure improvement happens along in different economies, that means that the delivery of services and goods are going to be very well improved, and hence improving sustainable living around the people of Dodoma and Tanzania as well. But crossing again to our neighbors, Kenyan textile farm is up to shillings 5.7 billion plant in Zanzibar. Now the Kenya's farm Basara Textile Limited is setting up a 5.7 billion shillings, that's around 51.3 US dollars factory in Zanzibar, as it targets a pie of about the regional closed market. It is hoped also that the factory was being launched by President Samia Suluhu Hassan this week, actually, when he was giving a new help to Tanzania's textile industry, which also has potential to becoming a significant sourcing location for foreign buyers. With the factory at Shunguni area in Zanzibar, Bazara Textiles is also targeting export markets across East Africa and also Central Africa. Its company Chief Executive Officer Ahmed Othman said on Tuesday last week. And also the global textile industry was established around 920 billion in 2018 in regards to US dollars, and the project will be reaching out approximately 1,230 billion US dollars by 2024. Available global data showing that there. But when you look at Tanzania, which is also enjoying a duty of free market access to the United States, though the African Growth and Opportunity Act as well as the European Union is unfortunately importing of its textile requirements mainly from China, India, Pakistan, Korea, among others, and also that is courtesy of the official data showing that. But the country's few locally processed fabric fabrics around Chitenge and Kanga are used by domestic users and exported to neighboring countries of Kenya, Rwanda, Malawi, the DRC, as well as China. This one is also a great one, bringing our neighbors Kenya and Zanzibar very close.
And the fact that the global textile industry was estimated at around 920 billion in 2018, it was projected to reach approximately 1,230 billion by 2024. So when you look at that, in a situation that is happening in and out of the two countries, Zanzibar and Kenya, I pretty much guess it will also benefit the people of Zanzibar this time around, the island country. And it being the situation, when you look at Kenya, is a very strong economy. If you're to compare the two, if Zanzibar is aside from Tanzania at a time when you want to compare these two economies, you will see that Zanzibar will benefit greatly. Though then Kenya is also having market ready. So as a country, it is always important to build bases for your market that will be available at any one point.
And also, Sonko, when you look at the neighboring countries that will be benefiting, or other countries like DRC, which recently joined the East African Community Partnership, you will realize that Democratic Republic of Congo will be transporting now all the fabrics, like said here earlier, to the part of West Africa. So you're able to tell that other countries, even Gabon and others, will be benefiting directly from such an initiative from just two countries, Kenya and Zanzibar.
All right. And with that, we still stick to Tanzania, rather to the East African Community Bloc, with the other SMB across borders. And this particular one is that Kenya and Tanzania's trade approaches a $1 billion mark. The bilateral trade between Tanzania and Kenya hit $905.5 million in the first 11 months of last year, as their trade relations have since improved. Records indicate that the total trade between the two states for January to November 2021 trade picked up. Enough signs of measures taken on long-standing trade disputes. Kenya's imports from Tanzania stood at 501 million, and exports stood at $403.9 million during the period which followed. President Samia Suluhu Hassan's official visit to Nairobi last May, that did happen. The economies of the East African Community region, that is the EAC, also manifested resilience during COVID-19, with the fact that the pandemic had greatly hit the African continent, but not only the African continent, when you're to look at the entire world. But when you look at this, the economies of the East African Community region manifested resilience to the COVID-19. The encouraging signs of encouraging signs of trade increase between the two countries as they emerged last week during a trade facilitation forum at the Manga border post. The regional apex body of private sector associations say there was ample signs that the region was recovering steadily from the effects of the pandemic. And the East African Community Bank says Tanzania has lately registered a favorable balance of trade with its northern neighbor due to sharp increase of exports to the latter. So
lucky them. I mean, Tanzania and Kenya are very well coordinating in regards to, the importation and exportation between them. But last week, 2 weeks back, our importation on maize was again halted down by Kenyan government because of the not being up standard to what they really want. So from what I see here, if Tanzania and Kenya, at least their bilateral trade coordination is moving on well, at least at a 90%, whereas ours with Kenya is still around maybe 70, because some of our products actually do not cross over effectively because we are still lacking a bit of checkups and check-ins in regards to our producers on how they are to cross the border. But again, now with the move of UNBS, trying to halt down and create awareness along some of the products that are being, going into public and going on the market, maybe we are hoping we can also dwell into very well with these other markets.
And I still feel when Kenya in some of the conversations I did have with a gentleman from the East African community, the East African Grain Council. He says that Kenya's ban on our maize was a lesson to Uganda and the quality of exports that we tend to bring out. Why? Because in most cases we tend to relax and sit in a comfort zone, more so when it comes to the high-end people who know more about the exportation. Because the low-income earner or the farmer from the grassroots delivers. But in most cases, they cannot easily tell whether this is of the world standards. Because theirs is to see that they plant, if at all it's maize or all that. For them, theirs is to say that you wake up in the morning, go cultivate. So when you look at the situations that are happening, I think the gentleman told me that he believes government is relaxed a lot when it comes to helping these farmers. So at the end of the day, it goes back to us. How are we going to support these farmers, and how can we tell them this, or how can we support them by giving them, let's say, quality? We looked at the situation whereby technology can help us also boost the agricultural sector. What has government done to boost the agricultural sector? Which technology has government laid for these people? And
you're right,
to track down the
Sonko.
situation.
But also I see government programs being rolled out maybe across the parishes, across the local council. What is really the problem? Because I mean, government is issuing out maybe the PDM, the parish development model now. It is already there. Like when I say government now, I'm talking about the people directly concerned. That's the Ministry of Agriculture. If we're to talking to producers and our exportations, mainly Uganda exports from agricultural producers. I mean, developments have been given out to public. What is the problem? Is it that we're not embracing it? Is it going back to the policies? What do you think we can really maybe coordinate proper so that we can also hit such trade markets?
Well, I think government is laying out these all these programs, but the only challenge has always been the implementation of these programs. The program may come out and say the parish development model that is going to be laid out at the end of this month, but when you look at that, how best are we going to implement it? It may be rolled out, and then in the situation when it's already officiated, then it's done, then the implementation is dead off. So that is where government needs to follow up mainly on the farmers, because when you look at these crops that come out, a farmer will come out and cry out to the government that I face these challenges. That is the reason as to why I'm producing poor yields. And you look at the local suppliers here, or the local producers who buy from these farmers, they will actually buy at a lower fee, saying that your products, or let's say your raw materials or your crops or your yields are poor, so we are going to pay a smaller fee for them. So that triggers our exportation policies, and you want to ask, how are we going to fight this? Because once the other person gives in the money, then even the farmer will feel like, well, my hustles are not being appreciated, and then government is not even enforcing something to help me. Because when you look at situations like even with our coffee and all things that are happening, it seems there's some bit of relaxation that we need to first clear off, and then we can easily see that our exportation can go back to the highest, and we can also export standard goods, because that is where we want, if at all we want to have high exports.
Yeah, we also want to hit different markets. But speaking about markets, the other day while interacting with the ED Siatini, that is Jen Nalunga, she was highlighting on also if government could lobby for us defined markets around these continental trade or continental area boosters, so that we identify and say, okay, because there is a saying that there is market across, East Africa, there is market across the continent, but again, we're not defined on which market exactly are we talking about. If we're going to sell producers for our products, where are we exactly? Let us define exactly where the maize is going to reach, where the maybe potatoes, where the millet is going. Is it going to be sold in Kenyan supermarkets? Is it going to be sold in Kenyan, walkway markets? Or is it having having any defined, market, because in turn, this is going to help, even how we produce, because then Ugandans will realize, okay, if we're producing a certain product, let's say maybe millet, which product can we use? Any that you can use actually for your case. You say, okay, if I'm to produce this particular one for a supermarket, you will know the packaging. Because you cannot just produce a bunch of matoke. If you're exporting matoke,
you don't export a full bunch.
Yeah, if you're going to export it and you're looking at, okay, the matoke that is going to go in the supermarket. I mean, who is going to go to Kenyan supermarket to buy a bunch of matoke, a full bunch? So this will help into the packaging of the products. So maybe government also could look onto such CSOs advice onto marketing and also branding our products or producers. That could definitely help.
And then that aside, even if you're to look at which market are we going to send particularly, it also goes back to what defines us as Ugandans. What is our key export? Because at the time when we could look like coffee is our key export, then you will see someone saying, no, we have milk, we have dairy products. Then someone says, we have tea. So all that. We need to come out and see what defines us as a nation so that it becomes part of everyone. It becomes, let's say, if you look at the situation of inclusive growth, some of the key highlights of the upcoming financial year is that they're going to be looking at inclusive growth, whereby all Ugandans are part of the growth when it comes to the development of the country. So we need to look at that situation, that angle, and we say that if at all we have this market, how best should Ugandans know that this is our key product of produce? So if at all a Ugandan out there is dealing with this product, they should know that this is a national treasure. That means we bring in, this particular product brings in a lot of money for us. So identifying the key crop
that sells us as a country
is very important.
That reminds me of when I was still, studying a little bit way back. They ask you what is the cash crop of your area. I don't know where you asked that. So you had to define from the areas you came from or you were coming from. You had to define what is that identifying crop or that defines your area. And what you're saying, by the way, is really right. As a country, we've got very many producers, but the Ministry of Fisheries will come out and say, you know what, we're the leading. They seem to be a competition of beating up products. And the coffee person will come out and say coffee is the leading, whereas the dairy one will say we're the leading. I mean, we export milk more than what is being exported around tea. So if we're coming out to really have a strategic sale around the country, maybe that would define us, not just calling us the Pearl of Africa.
So true, because when you look at most of the ministries and that are put in place, most of them tend to believe that theirs is the key export. Someone from the dairy sector will tell you our dairy products are highly exported. We have market in Zambia, we have market in Morocco, we have markets in the United Arab Emirates. So when you look at that, that one is giving his self a morale booster and self-defense to show you that the dairy products are being exported highly. Then people from the coffee sector will tell you coffee has always been the major export since since the independence time. So then someone from the sugarcane sector will tell you, well, we have a number of sugarcane refineries in the
but Durham, we also have that is Uganda Bureau of UBOS. We have statistics there. I mean, where does UBOS then get all reports and comparing? But we will also be surely following up on how UBOS, so that we clear the air about this, not because it's now becoming a debate and arguments even among you. And you can also text us on what you really think. What is the best? How are we doing in regards to our exportation? And also we can surely encourage and develop our country together. As we head into the break, do you have anything to add on how our bilateral trade, just as we conclude, how our bilateral trade is a booster to our economy?
Well, first and foremost is we need to also look at how we create relations with our neighbors.
Okay.
Because if you're to boost the economy, it may not be necessarily us, but also our neighbors. Because that is why Uganda is still trying hard to settle the disputes that we have between us and Rwanda, and also that we have between the trade bans with Kenya. So because when you look at the relations that you build, should start with the borders, people who are close to you, before we can actually look at the wider markets. Because someone from the wider market will ask themselves, why does your neighbor fail to support you and you expect me to? So there will be something there. So, but when you look at that, building bilateral relations play a very pivotal role to clearly see that we shall boost this economy, and in a time when the economy is actually into recovery. So we need to build all these relations with our neighbors, or even within any investor that comes in the country, whether locally or those that are foreign based. So all that is very important.
Very well, and as takes us to the break, SMB continues shortly. We do return with more business reports.